With the 174th pick in the 2022 NFL Draft, the Chicago Bears proudly select Dominic Robinson, defensive end from Miami of Ohio. Welcome to Chicago, Dominic. Bear down.
Dominic, how raw do you consider yourself right now as a pass rusher?
I consider myself to be really raw. I've been working on some new stuff.
What up, guys? Swifty here, breaking down every single rookie in depth and covering everything Chicago Bears. Today's video is on 5th round pick Dominic Robinson. I've already broken down 8 rookies from this class in depth, and today marks number 9. I will finish up my rookie breakdowns next weekend with Elijah Hicks and the much anticipated punter video. Before we get started, guys, you know the drill. Hit that like button for me now before you forget. If you missed any of the other breakdowns, you can find them all on my page. Check them out. Now let's get into this week's breakdown. Starting out a bit with his story and background, Dominic Robinson was a dual threat high school quarterback who grew up in Canton, Ohio, the birthplace of the Pro Football Hall of Fame. He only received one scholarship offer, and it was to stay in state and be a quarterback/athlete for the University of Miami, Ohio. He was recruited to Miami as an athlete and listed at quarterback position. He didn't see the field at all as a freshman, and then he switched positions to wide receiver his sophomore and junior season. He had 452 yards and 4 touchdowns on limited action over his 2 years. He didn't switch to defense until 2020. He was learning a new position and only got to play in 3 games due to a COVID-shortened season. He did make an impact, though, and had 2 sacks and 2.5 tackles for a loss, as well as a pass deflection. It wasn't until 2021 that he got to play his first full year on defense in his career as a reserve. He was impressive as a pass rusher. He had 4.5 sacks, 8.5 tackles for loss, and 28 quarterback pressures. He impressed enough to earn the 3rd team All-Mid-American Conference invite and got an invite to the Senior Bowl. It was at the Senior Bowl where Robinson really made his mark. He already had all the traits of a day 2 pick, but then he came out and dominated against some of the best tackles in the draft. He showed great flexibility, burst, and power at the Senior Bowl, and scouts seemed to agree that he had locked up a selection as a day 2 pick in the NFL draft. We all know how deep this draft was, so it looks like teams went with safer picks, and the guy who has all the tools to be a day 2 pick ended up sliding towards the end of the 5th round. That is when Ryan Poles made his move. After trading down numerous times in the 5th round to acquire extra picks, Poles struck twice late in the round, acquiring left tackle prospect Braxton Jones and elite pass rushing prospect Dominic Robinson. Welcome to Chicago. Let's go over some quick notes on D-Rob before I get into his strengths and weaknesses. He was a 2021 member of Bruce Feldman's Freak List. He was a high school team MVP, and he was first team All-Federal League as a senior in high school. He ran a 4.62 40-yard dash and will be one of the fastest and most athletic linemen on the team from day 1. He only played 541 career snaps on defense. In those snaps, he only missed 3 tackles in his entire career. He is 6'5", 253 pounds, 23 years old. At the combine, he ran a 4.72 40. He has a wingspan of 82 3/8 inches, and his arms are 33 3/8 inches long. And he has an impressive vertical of 34 inches. Now it's time to get into his strengths and weaknesses, how he fits the team, and then we'll go over his grades. So let's get into it. Let's start out with his strengths. Robinson has elite athleticism, incredible upper body power, one of the most athletic players in the entire draft. He has excellent burst, speed, and agility. He has elite first step quickness and the quick twitch ability to be explosive coming off the snap. He was often the first player out of his break on any given snap. He is a high energy player who never seemed to get tired, but he also was never a full-time starter. He has quick, powerful hands that will only get more lethal as he learns how to use them better. He has excellent footwork and bend coming off the edge. He shows the awareness and hand-eye coordination to be dangerous swatting the ball away from QBs and deflecting passes. He has the instincts and agility to cover backs out of the backfield. He shows impressive awareness versus the run and has the agility to shed blocks and attack ball carriers on the edge. He has excellent balance and excels at counter moves and stunts. He is a solid tackler with insane strength, especially for his size. He shows nice versatility of pass rush moves, especially considering he has less than 2 full years as a defensive player. In one-on-one battles at the Combine, he showed off his impressive tools and showed off a versatile set of pass rush moves. He is also violent and aggressive and almost impossible to block one-on-one. The sky is the limit for Dominique Robinson. He is fast, explosive, and incredibly strong. It is extremely impressive how fast he has learned the defensive end position. Not an easy transition to go from offense to defense. How about his weaknesses? Robinson is very raw and inexperienced as a defensive end. He does look more polished than he should, considering he hasn't even played the position for 2 full seasons yet. So he doesn't have much experience versus the run, but showed he could handle it well at times. He is slippery and explosive, so it can be hard for linemen to get their hands on him. However, once they get their hands on him, it can be over with. He needs to work on his hand placement and lower body strength the most, in my opinion. He doesn't understand leverage or technique enough quite yet, and needs to work with his coaches to get better in this area. He often plays with his pad level too high and is learning how to convert his raw athletic traits as a defensive end. He flashes great hand usage, but he needs to get better in that area as well. I feel like he will also need to add more strength overall if he wants to become more than just a situational pass rusher. Biggest concern for that area to me is his lower body strength. His upper body strength is insane. Definitely needs to round out his lower body. So how about his long-term potential? Robinson is very raw as a prospect. He has less than 2 full years on the defensive side of the ball, and he's never been a full-time starter. He does offer that potential long-term, but he is not even close to ready for that right now. He has every single athletic tool you could want from a pass rusher and will probably be the fastest player on our defensive line. He is a project, though, at this point in his career. Poles and company obviously saw all the traits he can offer. His ceiling is a freak athlete like Javon Curse, who can be a nightmare to opposing quarterbacks. He has that kind of upside, but a long way to go to realize it. His downside is a guy who is a situational pass rusher in the NFL who never develops into a full-time player. Even his floor isn't bad, especially for a 5th-round pick. So how about his expectations for this season? Robinson's expectations this year depend on factors that are out of his control. Big factor on how much he plays starts out with whether or not Robert Quinn sticks around. With Trevis Gibson, Al-Quadin Muhammad, and Robert Quinn on the roster, playing time at defensive end will be hard to come by. Luce does like to rotate his defensive line a lot, so Dominique should offer value as a situational pass rusher from day one. I think he will need a lot of hard work and needs to spend some time adding power to his lower body before he can become anything more than a pass rush specialist. That isn't a bad thing though. Pass rushers are the most wanted commodity in the entire NFL. All Bears fans should remember the impact that Mark Anderson had during the 2006 Super Bowl run. Anderson, like Dominique Robinson, couldn't play the run yet. He was light-framed and explosive and provided 12 sacks as, get this, a 5th-round rookie draft pick. That ended up being his career high, though. Lovie Smith broke up the Alex Smith and Adewale Ogunleye edge combo in favor of moving Mark Anderson to the starting lineup. That was one of Lovie's biggest mistakes of his career. Anderson struggled and only had 9.5 total sacks over the next 3 seasons combined. Anderson struggled versus the run and ended up playing for 4 teams over his next 4 years. He did have a 1-year resurgence at age 28 in New England. He provided his second 10-sack season of his career and what would end up being the only one outside of his magical rookie season. I think it's very possible the Bears could end up using Robinson in a similar role that we used Mark Anderson during that Super Bowl year. Robinson offers all of the athleticism and burst to be an effective speed rusher in the NFL. Instead of focusing on what he will struggle with, stopping the run, coaches should just let him focus on what he does best this season, which is rushing the passer. I think in that regard, Robinson could make quite an impact as a rookie. He's very similar to Trestan Ebner in that regard. While neither one of them has a shot at being a full-time starter during their rookie year, they both can make a huge impact where it really matters, the passing game. Ebner can be a passing weapon on offense, while Robinson can be a game-changing pass rush specialist on defense. Now, I'm not quite ready to say that Robinson is going to have the impact that Anderson did during his magical rookie season, but he does have that kind of upside. The potential is clearly there. Anderson's comp is a bit odd to make as he peaked his rookie season and was never able to match that 12-sack total again. Robinson's career likely won't match Mark Anderson's at all, but the skills and pass rushing potential are very similar. Anderson had the same type of speed and a very similar frame to Dominique. Speaking of comparisons, I found a couple of interesting charts on Twitter by Clayton Eckert, but give credit to Clayton for these charts. The first one might make Don Burr cry. D-Rob is as athletic as Lions' number 2 overall pick in the NFL draft, Aiden Hutchinson. While clearly not as polished, he does have as much upside. You have to love seeing this chart, and it shows just how athletic Robinson really is. The next chart gives a couple of NFL comparisons, including one I've mentioned already, Javon Curse, and then the legendary Willie McGinnis. Javon Curse is a guy I see a lot of D-Rob in. They both define the term athletic. As far as his size, speed, and athleticism, I compare him a lot to Javon Curse and Chandler Jones. And then in terms of former Bears, a lot of Leonard Floyd and Mark Anderson in his game. It's always fun to see comparisons, but let's get into the real stuff, his grades. Start off with his measurables. He has a similar build to that of Robert Quinn or Chandler Jones. He has great size for an edge rusher. He just needs to work on making his lower body as strong as his upper body. It's part of the transformation from offense to defense. I give him an 8.3. How about athleticism? Robinson is simply an athletic freak. He scored a 9.7 on the RAS score and has every athletic trait a coach could ever dream of. RAS score or not, you won't find many players this athletic. I give him a perfect 10 in athleticism. Now for his run defense. He shows the awareness and lateral agility to be good in gap control defense. He's also able to shed blocks and chase would-be scrambling quarterbacks down. His biggest issue is NFL teams would run right at him. He does not possess the anchor strength in his lower body to hold up versus the run yet. He also just doesn't have the experience and needs to work on his angles and pursuit as well. In run defense, I give him a 5.9. Now for his pass rushing. He has elite burst and agility, is a phenomenal athlete, can anticipate the snap, and has the bend and balance to get around the edge. He can cover running backs out of the flat and is fast enough to chase down dual threat quarterbacks. He is so twitchy, and it makes it hard for offensive linemen to get their hands on him. When they do, sometimes it's over for him though, and he needs to add more pass rushing moves and use his hands and arm length better. He can be an immediate factor as a situational pass rusher, and he should only get better as he develops. I give him an 8.7 as a pass rusher. Now for his technique. It's not awful. He is very raw, but he is a coach's dream. Pass rush moves he has are very good, and he just needs to continue adding to his move set. He is a good tackler, and his form is solid when wrapping up. Pad level is too high, and he needs to learn how to use his hands better. Overall, I give him a 7.1 in technique. Now for his overall grade. Dominique Robinson has everything you could ever want from a day 3 draft pick. Fans need to be patient, but he has all the talent in the world, and and I give him an 8.1 overall. Now for my final thoughts. It's impossible to talk about Dominique Robinson without being impressed by how quickly he switched from offense to defense. He had played offense his entire career, quarterback and wide receiver, all of high school and his first 3 years of college. Then in 2 years, he's added 40 pounds of muscle and already has advanced awareness and a decent repertoire of pass rush moves to get started in the NFL. To go from playing QB and wide receiver your entire life, then switching to defense on a whim, only playing in 3 games during the COVID-shortened 2020 season, then he somehow managed to come on strong as a pass rusher in 2021 and show enough athletic traits on tape and at the Senior Bowl to be in the conversation to go as a day 2 pick. He ended up sliding to the 5th round. So did a lot of other players that were expected to go in the 2nd or 3rd round. Depth in this draft class was ridiculous. No way Robinson makes it out of the 3rd round in a normal year. He has just too many athletic traits. To me, he has more traits as a pass rusher than Leonard Floyd did coming out of Georgia. Floyd was good in coverage and projected to be a good pass rusher, but he was overdrafted due to his athletic traits. He was 6'5", 244, and had a 9.1 RAS score. So Robinson has the same size and athleticism as Floyd, but we got him in the 5th round, not a top 10 pick. The growth he has made over 2 years on defense is insanely impressive. This kid is literally the definition of the sky is the limit. He has all the potential in the world, and his ceiling is up there with guys like Javon Curse and Chandler Jones. He has a long way to go before being compared to either of those players, but the potential is there. Can he reach that potential? That depends on how hard he works and how good of a job the coaches do at teaching him how to get better. We are 9 for 9 on rookies that are at least potential starters long term. That is right. All 9 players I have broken down from this draft class have starting potential. We only have 2 picks left, and the punter may have already locked down a starting job. Think about that. We got at least 10 potential starters from this draft class and potentially 11, because I think Elijah Hicks will grade out as a potential starter as well. Simply put, Ryan Poles nailed this draft, and nobody is talking about it. That goes against their narratives, guys. That the Bears are the worst team in the league, and that they did nothing to help Justin Fields. That is not what I see. I see a ton of help, and probably the best draft class for the Chicago Bears in 25 years, and a lot of low-risk, high-reward free agent additions. I won't go too much into it, but let's wait until next weekend when I break down the punter, Trenton Gill, and safety, Elijah Hicks. I'm finally almost done breaking down all 11 rookies. I had a blast covering all these guys and appreciate every one of you guys who watched my videos. If you missed any, I did full breakdowns on 9 rookies so far, and we'll finish the last 2 this coming week. After that, I will be breaking down position battles, assessing the entire roster, and doing all 22 film breakdowns on current players like Justin Fields, Evan Jenkins, Larry Borum, Cole Kmet, and more. You guys know I have some surprises up my sleeves too, and then I will ramp it up even more as we get closer to the season. Please hit that like button for me so other Bears fans can see the video. If you haven't subbed yet, stop what you're doing. Don't go anywhere yet. Hit that subscribe button and become one of the smartest and best Bear fans out there. I appreciate all the love and support in my comments section. You guys blow me away with kindness and just motivate me to keep getting better and putting out more and more videos. Stay tuned, and as always, bear down.